driving home from work again. Kathy's not with me tonight. She's back at our motorhome where I'm headed. And she did listen to parts of tape 188 again to clarify a few things that we weren't remembering the same way from the tape that we were doing a live stream about last night. And the one was that when they were talking about the river, that Mercodi was asking about, and in terms of seeing what was really there, I mean, keeping your mind on a higher level, and how Doe clarified that what that meant was not the idea, it didn't have anything to do with looking at the river as like an energy force, like happens with many in the New Age community, or some think that way, as looking at the world that way. You know, like, but the way that Tian Do looked at it was how the river was flowing in from the ocean in that case, and he was wondering about how the current worked with the salmon. In other words, the practical realities of the river and how much its relationships. So that was, so being more in tune with that is more accurate, it's more real, as opposed to everything being like a representation of the, you know, making the representation of the river into something. I mean, it can, well, if you look at the book of Revelation and you look at the Bible, the record books, materials, you'll see representations of things because they do have a value. I mean, analogies are all usefulness, and the river in that context is frequently, water is defined as the human kingdom, or the spirits, the mind of the humans. And and so, I mean, you had in the book of Daniel, I forgot what chapter it was, 9 or 12 or something, it talks about seeing two individuals with their feet, one foot on the river and the other foot on the land. You know, which seemed like it was a projection of the future that even extended to the two witnesses, which was representative of two individuals who they compared to be olive trees and candlesticks. In other words, they were like a candlestick is like the body that is giving off light. That's the way Jesus talked about it, that, you know, let your eye be single, he said, so that your whole body would be filled with light. And single-mindedness is what it takes to actually to graduate into next level membership. And of course the lower forces shift that around to making it the path to enlightenment. And it is a path, the focus, the single-mindedness is a path to enlightenment, but it becomes the opposite if what we're being enlightened with is ourself. Even though the self does become enlightened, but only because it chooses to fill itself with the mind from the next level, as opposed to filling itself with the mind from the human kingdom. And by the use of the mind, there's some deer on the side of the road there. Don't you cross now. The mind of the human kingdom keeps us human. And so the space aliens' strategy, if it was a strategy or just something they automatically do, I don't know exactly, is to keep humans human. And then look for the ones that are evidencing having a soul and try to steal them from their becoming members of the next level by having them become spiritual adepts or contactees or political powerhouses or billionaire moguls or well-renowned in the arts or in the sciences, and because then they all get the praise of humans in various ways, and they make money and they have success and people write books about them, but that becomes filling themselves with humanness. And the idea of becoming a member of the next level means getting out of the humanness that you got into. So like it's part of the humanness to get into it. So that, like T said in the first book that she began to write with Doe, that was called I Can't Believe That, But You Must, which they only wrote 2 chapters of it. And I possess, I believe, the original. And in that book, she said that some people have to burn it out of them, their humanness, so that they don't want it anymore. It's like get into it so much that the pitfalls start to surface. And an example of that is like getting into sexuality so much that you're dealing with diseases all the time, like gonorrhea, I think Doe mentioned, as you're wearing the body out. And the ramifications are the body starts to self-destruct from that. So that's like burning it out of your system. In other words, giving you a difficult lesson so that you'll change your behavior, so that you're not getting so addicted that it's actually depleting your health and in a major way. And you're not. And by having those things happen, and this is related, I think, to nutritional deficiencies that we all have, whether we recognize them or not. We all have them, according to Tiendo. I mean, it's part of the genetic system now that you're born with the vehicle is born with genetic deficiencies. And so we're all like subject to different diseases according to our ancestral heritage, and mind diseases as well. Disease of the mind, yeah, and like to where certain information and certain truths can actually upset somebody so much so that they begin to have erratic behavior. And they even accept that erratic behavior, and they can even generate all kinds of negativity in their minds because of how their minds went downhill continuously. And sometimes that's because of the way those vehicles were raised. Or, it's a genetic thing, and it's also a mind strain relationship of deterioration of the goodness in a mind, to where they can get preoccupied with, like I remember years ago when there was a mass shooting of some Amish people. I think it was Pennsylvania. And I've told this story many times, but and they interviewed all the people that knew this guy that shot these Amish kids in the school and killed them. And they said that he was gentle, seemed like a nice person. But he kept to himself, and and so they were very surprised that he ended up like shooting people up. And so how do we explain that? How do the psychologists explain that? Well, it's actually not that hard, I don't think. And it's the content of their mind we don't know about. They can be hiding it the whole time. They could be having thoughts of doing that kind of thing, and it might start like a video game or something. Who knows how it can start, right? Or you're mistreated by your parents or siblings, and so you've got a lot of pent-up anger, and things happen in the world, and you see them, and this individual begins to entertain getting back at people and revenge and vengeance and different forms of getting rid of their hatred and their anger, and they entertain it for so long and so much going on in their heads that it replaces reality, to where they are willing to even run a scenario by of playing out some scenario of getting rid of their anger and their hatred. And I guess it can also be something that happens with hardly any conscious thought. But I don't know too much about that part of it. But I know that when we dwell on something, and that's why the technique of blocking out thoughts that we know are beneath us is so important. And anybody that's conquered to some degree any kind of addiction knows they have to block out the thoughts that want them to continue with that addiction. And they have to even put themselves in a circumstance to where they're not going to be subject to the same conditions that end up influencing them to participate in that addiction further again. And all those things are the mind taking over the vehicle. So that's all next level energy or thinking, behaviors to control the vehicle. You control the brain, you learn to control the body, and in all ways. There's no lack of this. Like for instance, in the classroom, one of the lessons we got many years into the classroom was to be very quiet about what we did with our voices, our voice volume, and with our footsteps, and with the closing of cabinet doors and doors between rooms, so that you weren't making any sound, hardly at all, as little as possible. And Tiendo made a point to not do certain things, like putting felt on the doors to the cabinets in the lab, for instance, in the Nutrilab, what humans would call the kitchen. Because if you have a crew working in there and they're trying to work very quickly, which is the way of the next level, to work as quickly as you can without breaking things, you wouldn't appear to be working quickly, because the way that you were working quickly was by not having any motions that were not useful. And Doe said that he was a master of working very quick, but you didn't know she was working quick, but she was just not having any wasted motion. So anyway, as I usually do, I don't talk about the subject that I put on this until halfway into the live stream. And I wanted to talk about the feeler. And when we joined the classroom, some of the terms that we used were feeler, pulling the mind from the next level into our vehicles, getting our mind into our vehicles, which in T's mind, what that meant was getting the mind from the soul that was trying to take that vehicle over, the soul that came from the next level, that was still a student soul, even though it may have had elementary tasks in the next level on spacecrafts before then, depending on each one. And getting that mind, which is the experience of being in the next level, into our human vehicle that was picked, and we picked to take over, to grow our mind by taking it over. Because every time you conquer an addiction, you have grown your mind. Your mind is stronger, literally, more powerful, more able to do more, and more able to influence others in a good way by the presence of the individual and the kind of thinking that they think and the ways that they think and they do. Everything adds up to actually growing that soul body into a viable next level body. That's what the metamorphosis is all about. The metamorphosis wasn't, it was, I don't know how much of it was about, no, I don't think the metamorphosis had much to do at all with the human vehicles. Like Tiendo, another one of the phrases that they used in 1975 and 6 was that we were also, and thereafter, we were stimulating body changes. Body changes. And I didn't know what that meant when they said that. And using our feeler was described as what we were developing as well in order to have a sense of what to do, what direction to go in when we're doing a task, where to find solutions to problems, how to approach problems. Like when we were traveling around giving meetings and we had no money, we would drive into a town and everybody in the car, which sometimes was like 4 people, we might have been traveling with 2 cars of 4 people each or so. This was 75 and 76. So as you're entering that town, you're asking the next level, thinking of the next level as being in the distant heavens, because when Tiendo were with us, we didn't, in our minds, try to talk to Tiendo. We tried to tune into the next level helpers, thinking about them as being in the distant heavens, among the stars. That's how they originally told us to, but then when we were with them, that's when we would ask them questions to draw on their minds, and they would give us all the lesson steps. So that connection with the next level members on spacecrafts was different in design from the connection we had with our older members. But we would only be trying to tap into the next level's mind on the spacecrafts when we were out and about. But even when we were out and about, we would think in terms of how to do something about how a member of the next level would handle this circumstance. That's what kind of thought we would be having about it. Whatever we were doing, we could be driving a car and we could have a flat tire, and each of us would be, we weren't being told to do this because we could forget about it. We could think, well, let's see, maybe we can change the tire and go to the next town and get the tire fixed in case it happens again, That might be a practical way of dealing with a tire. Maybe the way that we always did when we had a flat tire in the world. But if we were trying to be a member of the next level in that vehicle, then our first thoughts would be to ourselves, but we might say it out loud, is how would our older members handle this task? Or how would a member of the next level handle this task? And use our feeler to sense when ideas we get and whether those ideas are from the next level. And when you have a check partner with you, then you run it by your check partner. You say, I just had an idea about this, doing this. What do you think about that? And then the check partner would think, well, I mean, if they didn't think there was something wrong with that approach, and they were also asking, they might say, well, that sounds like it might be something a member of the next level would do. So let's take steps in that direction and see how it feels with each step. Not assuming that you got the right answer, but feeling your way through the task, inch by inch. And every part of the task. I mean, how you tighten the bolts on, you know, when I put the spare on, did I tighten the bolts enough? Would that be what the next level would do? And, you know, some humans would think that this is like weakness, to be always asking for all these little details on, you know, it's not that hard to tighten the bolts, you know. Why would you even need to ask about stuff like that? But see, a member of the next level doesn't want to be right, doesn't want to, a member of the next level wants to do right, do the most right thing according to what all the members would do. Because it's not a stagnant or static kind of way of thinking and acting. It's because the older members, when you ask them a question, when you put that out there and you say, I wonder how an older member of the next level would handle this task. I wonder how T&O would handle this task. I wonder how, you know, the chief of chiefs would handle this task. Well, for us right now, since T&O are not here, I think the highest form of asking would be to wonder how T&O would handle the task. How you handle the task. And that gives T&O the option, because they actually hear that. Because they're watching the individuals that are trying to change their behaviors and ways according to next level behaviors and ways. They know who's doing it. It's not a mystery to them. They have crews that are assigned to keeping track of what we're doing. I'm saying we, because I'm just one of many that they can be keeping track of, who are all trying to grow at one pace or another, in one way or another, to one grade in school or another. It doesn't matter whether they know about T&O or not. If they do know about T&O, then they got more. There's more required of them, like Jesus talked about. To those that much is given, much is required. That's next level thinking. They don't give somebody that's in elementary school a task to work on trigonometry. But for those that can handle trigonometry, then they're going to give them a task to be able to maybe handle some advanced physics course of some sort. You know, whatever's related to mathematical kinds of pursuits. You know, even though math to the next level, I don't know if there's an equivalent mathematician in the next level, a task that focuses on that medium of understanding technology and so the feeler So you'd be coming into a town and you'd be thinking about who in that town might be receptive to the new information that we have about Tian-Do that's related to what the previous information was that was given by Jesus and his Father and the disciples of Jesus. Okay, there's 2 police cars that have their lights on up here. I don't know, they're in 2 different weird spots. 3 police cars. 4 police cars. And then there's this trailer with a little car. That's the second time in 2 days I've seen the police having stopped somebody that had a truck with a trailer on it, and it had a flatbed, and there was a car associated with that flatbed that wasn't on the flatbed. I wonder if they're busting people because they don't have them secured properly or something. Or maybe there's some kind of drug smuggling or something that's happening where they're transporting cars that way. Because otherwise, take 4 police cars to be part of something like that. I mean, I know they gather together to support each other. I don't know. It's hard to know what's going on, right? But anyway, it doesn't matter. But, so the feel, so we'd be coming into a town and you'd say to yourself, I want to, if there's somebody in this town that is ready to receive this information, I want to be led to that person. And then you just go about your traveling into that town, and maybe you've got to ask for gasoline to get to the, because you're running on fumes at that point. And you have further to go where you want to give a meeting or whatever, depending on what the strategy was. And so you think, well, since Tian-Do told us that what we were doing at that time was testing the churches to see if they were serving the kingdom of God, it looks like there's a steeple over there on the right, so maybe we'll turn down that street there and see what we can find. And we might find somebody, we might not. But you wouldn't necessarily just think, okay, well, I'm gonna check with every church in this town to see if I can get accumulate more and more donations to pay for the gas and our food going forward. Because we weren't, the instruction was to ask for our needs. And our needs wasn't cash. Our needs were gasoline or food or lodging sometimes. And so that's what we would do. We'd go up to the church door if there was like a rectory next to the Catholic church or whatever kind of church it was. And you knock on the door and a priest would come to the door and you'd say, we're in town, like what I would say would, because I would want to say something about what I was doing, but not so much that it's not something that they were asking for. But the fact was, I believed I was working for what the religious would call the kingdom of God, the kingdom in the heavens, the kingdom of heaven. But that we were bringing new information about the kingdom of heaven. And I would want to say that because I didn't really care about getting food and gasoline. I was on fire with having found my older member, and I wanted to serve and share that information with other people. It was exciting to do that. Miles to my exit. And so I had Kathy's Southwestern Colors and Kate's Biz and FDVIP. Anyway, so now the reason I wanted to bring up this feeler was because in tape 188 that Kathy and I were listening to, yesterday on the way to work. Now we talked about a little bit last night's live stream, and I kind of did a botched up job of talking about it because of my notes. I mean, I think I got the gist of it, but people had to kind of wade through Kathy and I remembering things a little differently. And anyway, but one thing T said at one point was, doesn't this feel right to you? Something like that. This is after they talked about different aspects of the way that our vehicles were picked and prepared for receiving the mind of a student member of the next level, coming to finish their task to graduate by taking over a vehicle and growing their mind stronger, which goes hand in hand, and depositing thoughts for others in the human kingdom to be able to grow by having availability of those thoughts, and those thoughts coming from Tiando's mind through us. This is all applicable to right now, I believe. We can all be that kind of an instrument for Tiando. We just have to ask them for the task. Because they don't want to impose on us anything. If we ask them for the task, how we can serve, they will lead us to the opportunities to serve. And we use our feeler to do that. We feel our way to deciding whether to talk to somebody about this or that, and how much to say, how much of a response to give to a question, and let them pull from us the mind from Tiando. So we have to study the information in order to have something for them to pull from. Because we're not trying to come up with our own interpretations. We're trying to understand what they taught. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with putting it in your own words, but trying to stick with as many of the key words that they gave us as we can remember. But you're operating at the moment. And so when you're in front of somebody, talking to them, and let's say the subject of UFOs came up in conversation somehow, you could have a lot to say about that. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of thoughts from Tian-Do to get quite the perspective that most humans don't have. Most of us humans don't have. But by when someone like says, well, what do you think? Do you think the space aliens are here? And when you look into the Tian-Do information, I mean, there wouldn't be anything wrong with saying, well, I've been studying this body of information from those that were called Tian-Do that talks about the space aliens being the ones in the Bible that were called the demons or the fallen angels. And I'm still a student in this regard. There's a lot of information about it in their literature. You know, just saying that is like a huge opportunity for somebody else to go and look for it themselves and study the information. So you don't have to wait until you've got, a certain amount of under your belt, because you don't have to pretend to be an expert. Because none of us are experts. If we think we're an expert, then that shows how we have so much to learn still. I mean, about thinking that we have so much. Because the next level is changing. So, to one person that we might be talking to, the next level might be watching us give that information to them, and they may give you an idea, because you'd be asking the next level, what do you think about how to respond to that question? And then when you get a thought, you go with it, and you see how it feels to say it, and see what their reaction is, and you watch them to see what their reaction is. And it can sound crazy. You have to be willing to sound crazy. But it's not about, wanting to sound crazy. It's, that some people are going to see you that way. And some are going to insult you about that. And you have to kind of, build a shell so that you don't respond with fire. And let that, become a downer, which is hard. It's not easy. Some people have a bigger challenge with that than others. But that doesn't make you any lesser of a potential student and servant of Tian-Do. So I'm going to close, I think. Next level tire change analogy. Right. Right, I don't look at the chat while I'm driving. When he gets back to the RV, he can answer any questions you may have. I have so many questions. Oh, I see Madison does. All right, I'll bring it in for the moment if Madison is still there. If you want to ask some questions, if you're still around here. It's just going to take me about 5 minutes to get in the door. What is that?
That's
On the
a bunch
steps.
of banana peels, and there aren't any questions.
Right, I saw that. That's too much of a lag right now. They just leave them here?
Well, I don't know if you want to put it on the ground, but
Okay. All right.
well, I don't know if you want to put it on the ground. Sorry for the echo, you guys. Sorry for the... I've been watching it on my phone. FD Viv, I thought that was a series. I didn't realize that was a movie. Ah. Is it on Amazon Prime? Because we could watch it too. Whew. We have Netflix as well. Whew. The train. You left that bag on the stairs?
Yeah.
That way I think the animals won't try to get into
They
it.
won't get to it as easily.
Drag it all over the place.
Hopefully that's the case. So should I?
Well, there's one question what you think about Greek mythology.
Oh boy. Greek mythology. Nothing. I don't know about Greek. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but not a lot. So I guess I can't really do much justice to that question.
Well, I mean, you just said what you thought about it, so.
Well, I guess the only thing I can think of saying about it from Tiendo's mind.
That's not a good angle.
Huh?
That's not a good angle
What?
that you're holding the phone at.
Oh, yeah. is that there's been a number of civilizations on this planet, and the space aliens are the ones that, what?
Stand back where you were. Because people can't see you right now.
I see myself.
That's better.
And the space aliens are the ones that were talked about in like the biblical record, in the current civilization, as the fallen angels. And since this current civilization was the beginning of the lesson experiment, because of the fallen angels going against the next level, that the next level wanted to give others that were of some equivalent growth to those space alien individuals, those souls, the opportunity to work against their influence in order to overcome being influenced by them, so that they could correct the problem of allowing individuals to be accepted into the next level when they still had that flaw of wanting to use their own minds to do things, as opposed to using their older member's mind. Because that's the way the next level is structured. Anyway, so the legends and the stories and the examples of the battles between the so-called gods are probably, they're probably like a science fiction movie, based on some truth, but being mixed and matched. Like when they show like an individual that's got the head of a human, or the upper body of a human, and the bottom body of an animal. We don't know whether there was actually people like that, or whether that's just depicting that they've still got their animal nature, their mammal nature, and yet they've got this human nature, or humanoid, because members of the next level have humanoid vehicles. Most of them, I think. I don't know if all of them do, but that's why humans have humanoid vehicles, because next level designed human kingdom to grow with those kind of vehicles. So, so each of those different aspects of different mythologies, whether it's Babylonian or Sumatran or Greek or Roman, they seem to have their accuracy to some degree. And the planets, like some of the so-called gods assigned to planets, can be a number of different kinds of assignments. So that's about all I want to say about it, I think, because I'd be just guessing to go any further.
Well, it looks like the movie that he's referring to is on Amazon, and it's included with our HBO Max subscription, so we'll watch it tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
1 hour and 44 minutes.
Sounds great.
I'm not quite ready for the finale of The White Queen, so...
Oh, yeah? All the death and destruction that's going to happen?
I think it ends pretty bad for her.
Okay, well, that's... thank you for that, Link FDBIV.
Yeah, and hopefully you're not going to waste 1 hour and 44 minutes of our time. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, folks. Let's see. Okay, random user. Hello, everyone. And Old School Dave, yes, I see you there. Thank you for participating with us again. You're welcome, FTBIV.
I don't know what he means by saying it would have been nice of you to let him read me.
I am going to read you.
I asked the question that he asked, so... I guess that's just more confirmation I should just shut the fuck up.
Oh, don't take it that way yet. Okay. I don't know.
Just sick of getting negativity.
Yeah.
Just shut up. I won't talk anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of... Maybe we're misunderstanding him.
I don't know how many hints I need before I take the advice of numerous people on your channel. I clearly do not care for me.
He says, don't take it that way, Kathy. It's not my intention. Well, I can see from reading what you said there, FTVIV, to be honest, I'm going to express myself. And when you're telling Kathy it would have been nice of you to let him read me, how would you think somebody would respond to that? Whether it's your intention or not, Kathy does, when we work together on this, we do, you're telling her to shut up, basically, I guess. And I don't know, it's rude, I think. I don't know, maybe not. So I don't think it's altogether, yeah, I don't know what was so wrong about her telling me about it. It's not like she's gonna misread it. Anyway, for whatever that's worth, you don't have to take that from me either. But anyway, so I hope this stream has been of some value to you all. And we'll be talking to you again. Good night. So FTVIV apologizes.
Right.
Yeah, FTVIV, you've got a, I don't know, you're apologizing at the same time as you're actually doing the opposite. You just wanted to connect with Sawyer. Yeah, I know, but that's I don't know, I don't agree with you that Kathy's got to be the brunt of your reason for being rude. As if, it's playing tit for tat, right? It's like somebody says something to you and you don't like it, so you say it back to them. And then, and so now, who's in the right and who's in the wrong? If everybody's saying things that the other person doesn't agree with, it's ridiculous. It gets nowhere. There's no positivity in it. I think you might want to examine whether what you're saying is a positive and whether it can be hurtful to somebody. Because what Kathy said, I don't think there was anything hurtful in it. She was feeling hurt herself by what you said, because she's dealt with this from a number of people over the years. You can't imagine, I don't know if you can, maybe you can imagine, that I've been doing these streams for many, many years. And so, I'm used to a certain amount of negativity that people throw at me. But Kathy jumped into this, and it was not easy. And it still isn't easy. because of how so many people, treat her like she's like a groupie, and that she should get a job, real job, and I mean, even say that about me too. There's so much criticism of us. It doesn't take a lot. Just one or two things said by somebody is like, it just makes somebody else feel bad. I mean, they don't have to feel bad, okay? We can all let it roll off our backs. Maybe, but it's not always easy to do that. And so, from the perspective of somebody saying things to somebody else that they've got to let roll off their backs, they should want to change, so that they're not saying anything to anybody that could hurt them, whether they should be hurt by it or not. It's not relative. I mean, like I don't generally try to correct anybody. Well, I do, though. When people insult T and Doe, or insult my classmates, or insult, I don't care about them insulting me personally, but if they're gonna tell me like I'm insane or whatever it is they say, I want to know specifically what I'm insane about, and then I'll address it. Okay? And if somebody's just rude and they're just calling me names, sometimes I say nothing to them, but sometimes I say to them, what good is that? What value is that to that? And if it's like that old saying, if it's not positive, it doesn't have some kind of positivity to it, then why say it? Why even bring it up? Why even use the words? Anyway, I kind of beat it to a death, I guess. Yes, I do apologize if I hurt your feelings. Okay. Says, laughing out loud, it's all good, Sawyer. Okay, got you. Yo, says the editor. Well, you didn't think of any polite ways to say it. I think, you didn't need to say it at all. Because all it did was, it didn't say anything. Right? I know. I'm talking about it some more. All right, well, of course you could have turned me off by now if you wanted to. I wouldn't be offended by that. All right, so good night, folks.